Okay, evening. Let's invite Harsimran. Excellent. Perfect.
Can you see me well?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
How's the sound for you? Good.
Great.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you clearly. Excellent. Excellent. I'm so excited.
Yes. Let's do our introductions and I'll talk a little bit quickly about what's the entire live stream about.
Yes.
Do you want to start?
Uh, Hang on. I need to get my piece of paper so I can stay focused. But I just saw somebody joined, my friend, so just wanted to say hello. So just one sec. Oops. Oh, fell. Okay, so stay there. Okay, so first of all, thank you guys for joining. And I'm super excited to introduce my new friend, Harsimran. And we have so much in common, actually. So, it's like really old friends meeting after so much time. But like, yeah, it's insane, but it's so true. So we wanted to just talk to you how we started with Dasha, our teacher, and then as to how we decided to learn, and then explain to you what the consultation is and the practices that would be specific to you and your blocks. And then we have a bit of time for questions and answers. And for five first people who will say in comments interested, we'll do mini consultations today during live. Okay, so get
Yay.
tapping.
Perfect. Do you want to introduce yourself, where you live? And I don't know most of it either, so I'll be learning about it too.
Super. Yeah, sounds good. I haven't missed anything out, have I, from the plan?
No.
Good. Okay, so I live in UK. I was born in Soviet bloc in Azerbaijan. So I used to speak Azerbaijan language. I have forgotten it now. I then moved to Ukraine. I lived in Ukraine, so I speak Ukrainian. And if you guys, any of you here who speaks Ukrainian, you can type in Ukrainian. I can understand. I can speak it. But for the sake of this live, we will speak English mostly. I also, because I was in Soviet bloc, I speak Russian. So if Russian is your language, type away. And I know Harsimran has lots of clients who speak all sorts of languages. So maybe maybe you can add.
Well, I don't speak the same languages as some of my clients who are from Taiwan or China. So a lot of them, they don't speak English. And so we communicate through translator apps, or if I've hired someone, they'll help me translate as well. But yeah, it's really interesting because of what we'll be learning tomorrow with Dasha consultations. This was actually the first introduction for me into working with clients who can't speak the same language as me. And it was really incredible because not only were we able to understand each other and I was able to convey everything just through text, but they really felt the importance and the healing power of the consultations, what they can do. And it was the first thing that got me clients from China just through text. And it was such an incredible opportunity and also such an incredible thing to happen because I would have never imagined that my effort into going into Dasha's classes, who always teaches it in Russian, would also translate into me working with clients who don't speak the same language. And yet it was a skill that was just kind of like, I wanted to learn from her, and now I found clients who want to work with me for the same very thing I've learned from her. So it's kind of a beautiful circle.
It's incredible. I think we live in such amazing times that no matter what our mind tells us, whatever barriers it builds, we can find a way over it, through it, whatever, and yeah, make it work. So don't let anything stop you, stop your path to healing and stop your path to, getting better. I mean, I
Absolutely.
think it's golden, and you're such a great example to that.
Yeah,
And I'm myself too.
absolutely. Yeah. I'll do a little introduction of myself.
Yes, please.
I'm from Singapore, and for my entire life, I've been around Kundalini Yoga. My parents were practicing. They started practicing the year they had me. And this was something that was introduced to me from 4 or 5 years old. And I began to practice with them. I would wake up and practice with them. I still remember my first meditations when I was 5 and 6. It's crazy, but this is the only memory I have from my childhood, so clear, doing these practices. And I've always been drawn to Kundalini Yoga. And I attended Miripiri Academy, which was the school founded by Yogi Bhajan, the master of Kundalini Yoga, for 7 years. And since then, I've been very fortunate to find Dasha through my partner and to be introduced to Sanamar and to these consultations. And it's crazy because all those years I was in Kundalini Yoga, I knew nothing about it.
It's,
Nada.
I know.
And I was completely shocked because I felt like this should be, it is the most important of teachings of Kundalini Yoga, yet maybe 1% of people know it and even lesser practice it and actually learn it.
I so agree with you, because absolutely the same happened for me. I mean, I've been practicing and teaching Kundalini Yoga like for 15 years, yet I've heard about Satnam Rasayan and I even like had a taster of it, but nothing clicked. Like maybe the explanation wasn't there, but actually it's the crown of Kundalini Yoga. What Kundalini Yoga does is prepares you, body, your mind, to receive that state and to get into that state of the highest healing. Duh.
Absolutely. This live is about consultations. Where do they come from? How do they work? And it is from the teachings of Kundalini Yoga and Svanamar Sign, but more of a secret and sacred teachings that aren't normally spoken or even taught to the mass. So we're going to be talking about how we begin to learn this, and actually maybe we should just go into that now.
Yeah. Do you want to jump right into it?
Yes, so tomorrow I'll be attending my 6th consultation training with Dasha. Uh, I've gone to every single one of them, and tomorrow is her last one. But from the beginning, the second she announced that she would be teaching this, I was like the first one in line. I was like, yes, finally, because I'd been getting personal consultations from her. I think from the first few months I met her.
Wow.
So I've already had a taste of what this is about and how they work. And I was like, this is something I want to learn to be able to provide to my clients, because from the beginning, I came to Dasha a complete mess. I was anxious 24/7. I never got off the couch. Like, I couldn't motivate myself. I had all of this knowledge from Miripiri that, was grained into my system. Get myself moving to do things that would make me happy or healthy. And I was finding jobs where, I was earning from 4 to 6 euros. And I thought, this is it. This is it for me until I get like a really high degree, and, this standards have to be met. And until I move out of my family's place, I'm always going to be unhappy and anxious. Like, I will never have a place to speak. And then I met Dasha, and I've never expressed myself well. I've never been able to do so. And I met Dasha, and it was through my partner. And the first thing, and before I met her, he was like, she knows exactly where people's blocks are, something in lines of that. And I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, she's going to see me and she's going to hate me. She's like, you need to leave her. What kind of crazy person are you dating? So I was terrified to meet her. And then he introduced me to her. And then we were there, and afterwards we're driving. If you want, I can help you if you want to work with your anxieties and to be able to just be more relaxed. And I was like, oh, okay. And she gave me a consultation on the car driving. Like, I didn't tell her anything. Like, she knew my name. That's it. And
Wow.
then she was able to tell me things that I'd never told anyone in my life. And I was just kind of there, like, completely stunned that she could know this. And she gave me a meditation practice, and I began to do it. And it was the first time I ever felt relieved in my life, relieved from my anxieties, and felt just safe in my skin. And that was my introduction to Dasha.
That is incredible. That's incredible. I mean, some things also true for me. I mean, even though I've practiced Kundalini yoga and I've practiced the meditations and other things, but they were like general things, and they have improved my life extremely well over the 15 years. But there's something about how Dasha teaches, and she knows exactly, she goes straight into the eye rather than the brow. She goes straight for the eyeball into the root of the cause. And I mean, all the practices that she given to me so far, I find them like, I start doing it, I'm like, oh, I'm home. I am home. And I mean, just within first 4 days being in her field, I mean, I've only met her in August. I've only started going into her close club from August. And in the first 4 to 5 days, I have healed my thyroid gland. I knew, like,
Wow.
things opened up for me. I knew that, okay, that's it. I'm healed. I don't need to take any medication. And I haven't been since. Okay, and that before I would take the levothyroxine every single day because my thyroid wasn't developing enough hormone. And I was like, I knew that. I just knew that there will be time, there'll be person who will lead me to this healing. And I did the same for my son. I only had very general Satnam Rasayan training with Dasha, but I've practiced that on my son. And again, like normally with his asthma, he will have like flare-ups when the seasons change. So you'd have to puff him every 4 hours going through the night, and it would last maybe 5 days, 6 days. And when you have to wake up every 4 hours through the night, you're like a zombie. You cannot function. So normally I would be like out of the out of the loop during
Yeah.
his days. Now he had no flare-ups. In fact, he hadn't had a puffer since August. So that is incredible. I mean, we all want to do that. We want to have this freedom in our lives to live happier and healthier and just enjoy life, really, rather than just running around like worrying about things.
And also, I mean, just hearing from your case, this is something that's very heavy to go through as a mother as well, to see your son sick, and also it's something that can always worsen with time. And then to be able to heal that, it's not a small thing.
It's
It's really just a miracle
it is
that it
huge.
happens,
It's
right?
absolutely huge, especially when you go to the doctors and they're all like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's normal case." Like we we have to prescribing you medication for life, so you're done basically.
Yeah.
And then it's like a new lease of life when you heal. And I know my mother also did some healing sessions with Dasha, and she stopped taking statins, and she's better in her head, in her memory. I mean, she's 72, so bless her heart, she's doing so much better just from a couple
Yeah.
of sessions.
And this is actually the same with my brother and my dad. My brother is younger than me, and he started to have high blood pressure 3 years ago. And I started signing him up for treatments with Dasha, and never had a problem with it since.
Wow.
And whenever he goes for a checkup, there's nothing. And my dad, who's had blood pressure for I think around 30 years, and he's been on heavy medication as well, like every single day. He can't miss a day. He hasn't had to take any medication for 3 years around now.
That's
Since
incredible.
we started working with Dasha, it's just like doesn't show up. And even though he's not a avid practitioner at all, but from just a few sessions, it completely removes something that's been there for 30 years. And my grandpa died from heart complication and liver kidney failure. So this was a real possibility for both my dad and my brother, but through Dasha, that's completely been healed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's a miracle, but it's an everyday miracle because this is possible for anybody. And that's what really is like opens my heart, because we can share it, we can learn how to do this, and we can be in the presence of the teacher in her field, and we can just get better. And actually, my husband is also had just recently had his middle life test, whatever they do, check you all over, and there's something with his liver. So I'm kind of waiting for more results so we know what's happening. And I'm like, okay, don't worry, we've got this. I'm not going into panic.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we can talk a little bit about consultations now, just to kind
Yeah.
of show you or give an example of what we're doing, what we're learning, and how does how what we're learning from Dasha that makes it possible for everyone to heal, whether it's a health issue or a money issue, which was both mine as well. So we can kind of talk about that. Do you want to introduce how you learned about the consultation training?
Yes, so consultation training. I was actually asking Dasha privately. I was like, even before I heard I was saying, I really want to learn how to give people exactly what they need, because in Kundalini Yoga, it's a little bit vague, but having this like exact directed oh yeah, it's hard to explain.
Like
Uh,
prescription, essentially.
yes, yes, exactly. It's a fail proof, basically. I'm like, I want to do this because what's the point of doing all these practices and missing the point, right? So yeah, so I am like that, and I was asking her like, can I learn this thing? And she's like, yep, you'll have to go to the consultation training, basically. And here it is, it's happening on Sunday. So yeah, awesome. I mean, maybe you can share about the consultations because you've done it so many times.
Yeah.
You're quite
Uh,
experienced.
so with the consultation, what we kind of essentially do is you come as a client, say what your problem is. What's the issue? I have this health issue. I can't make money. I can't, get the job that I want, whatever the issue is. And through meditative contemplation that we've trained from Dasha, we feel very accurately why you're blocked here. What is producing this issue in you? And from there, we select a practice that we, as the consultants, have done ourselves for over 40 days. And we select a practice that will work for you in your block. And that's essentially how you do it. And then for 40 days, every single day, you will do this meditation we've selected for you, and it heals you in those 40 days. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. And you don't need to be a practiced yogi or super bendy or I don't know, like being able to sit on the floor. There's nothing like that. There's no prerequisites, is there?
Yeah. No, zero. I've been really fortunate to get half my clients be complete beginners to yoga. And I'll give a few examples with consultations. I had a client who came to me and she'd had this stabbing pain in her shoulder and the back for years. She'd done acupuncture, painkillers, I mean, all kinds of holistic healing, gone to doctors and tried everything. But it always came back and it would worsen over time. And when I started learning from Dasha, after we did one class together, me and her, uh, the client, and I just felt where it was. I gave her a meditation and the pain completely left and it didn't come back again.
That
Not once.
that's incredible, isn't it? That's
That's
incredible.
it.
Yeah. I'm
And
just so super excited. Sorry. Go on.
it is extremely exciting because for years you're stuck in this pattern where you're anxious all the time. You wake up, you feel like shit, you feel like you can never speak up. I'm giving all of my examples. You feel like there's just no opportunities, no ways to get out of this situation. And you feel like this is the way it is done by everyone. I can't earn more than this. You know, this is the standard. And when I began to learn from Dasha, everything I had no plans to teach myself or to be a consultant. I was doing everything for myself. But I felt so many changes in my life that were never possible for me. Like I had no idea how to speak. If I was stressed immediately, since I was, I think, 4 or 5, like if I got stressed or upset, my throat would clog up as if like there was a ball in there and tears would run. And you know, when you're a teenager, this is the most embarrassing thing. So anytime in school, even when I left school, in my jobs, if I got stressed, immediately my throat would clog and I would start to tear up. And I could never defend myself in fucked up situations. I was like, all right, this is my fault. And I would leave feeling terrible, thinking, oh, this is my fault. I've caused them to feel this way or to behave in this manner. So when I went to Dasha, I just wanted to heal that. I didn't want to feel like that anymore, to go through it. And very, I would say organically, I started to just stand for myself. And I started to say no when it was important. I didn't want to do it. And I began to also do things that were really out of my comfort zone. So example was like setting up an Instagram account because Sasha was like, you need to earn for yourself, do your own job. And I was like, no, it's impossible. I'll never make money. I can't speak at all. Like, it's impossible. And she's like, no, just do it. It took me, I think, 2 months to do what she told me to do. And I should have started immediately because within a month of starting my Instagram account, a yoga studio contacted me from New York and said, hey, do you want to collaborate on some classes? This was before I had done even really any classes. And I was like, oh, okay. It was so simple. And I know for a fact that I've done Kundalini yoga for so many years and it's always been like, oh, I leave class, I feel so high. But I go back with the same anxiety, with the same block where I'm still stuck. I have no idea how to speak. I have no idea how to set higher standards for myself, even though mentally I know what's better for me, what's good for me. But with the consultation practice, what it does is it changes your consciousness to align with your higher values, with your inner strength, and it brings it out. And you, the whole time you're thinking it doesn't even work. This was me. I was like, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, I'm still so anxious. And yet I was doing so many things out of my comfort zone and I was getting results.
That's incredible. Yeah, You've just reminded actually of my situation to me as well. Again, it is to do with the throat, and that's why I had the problem with thyroid. I wasn't expressing myself just like you just mentioned. And although I'm 47, I've got 3 kids, I've done lots of marriages. I'm in my third marriage, but I was still, as a grown-up woman, unable to speak up for myself. I've had all these experiences, but I haven't learned what I needed to learn, because that pattern in me was such a deep-rooted pattern, which may be connected to my ancestors and what have you, but I wasn't able to shift it because it was so deeply rooted. But with just a couple of months, or 40 days, with doing the practice that Dasha given us, it's just lifted. I mean, my pattern is to self-sabotage. So if I need to do something, I wasn't able to focus on it for a long time. I would just like, oh, what about that? Oh, what about that? That's interesting. Oh, let's do all these 100 things, but not do what I need to do, and all of my complaints will be on that, because that happened to me, or he said that. So I was always like so dispersed, couldn't bring myself into this single pointness, so I can just focus on what is important. Oh, I think we have a question, is it? If any of
Yes.
you can tell me the treatment for sciatica pain, I would be grateful to you. Please DM if possible. Tarva, is that you? Hi, Sadna.
So with the consultation, this is, I think, the most important is that there is no general practice in Kundalini Yoga. There is no generalized practice that will work on one issue. If you say, I have anxiety, why do you have anxiety? There's so many different causes. You can have brain fatigue, maybe your liver's overloaded, maybe your diaphragm is so clogged that you can't breathe, that you're literally anxious because you can't breathe. Or you have so much emotional stress that literally the second you start to think, your entire body spasms and tightens from this tension. So with the consultation, is we're selecting a practice that works on your problem directly. We're not giving you a generalized meditation. It's just like, oh, you have this problem, let me just prescribe you the first thing I Google, because you never know how these meditations work, ever. Even when Yogi Bhajan gave them, he contemplated each class. And you will hear some people will say, I remember this really clearly, where someone asked him in class, can you drink water while eating? And so many people have asked him that, and for each person, he gave a different answer. He never had the same answer for anything, because you as an individual react to situations differently. It's just like we can all take the same food, but the way our body will process it and the way it will eliminate it, what it will take away, differs depending on our health, the status of our body, how well our nervous system is reacting that day, and it all changes. But in a consultation practice, we're zoned in precisely to what's causing this, and we see exactly what meditation will relieve it and heal it within 40 days. And this is something that you can't just find through a book. No matter how many meditations you do, which both of us, I'm sure, have done for over 15 years, it never worked directly with the issue. I always thought I hated myself. So I was like, for months, I was doing a self-love meditation. I did not love myself more after that. I had this imagination though. I was like, oh, I'm loving myself. But I was still anxious. I was still angry. I still couldn't set boundaries. How is that self-love? It's not. But when you
Mm.
work directly with the issue of it, then you can cultivate self-love. When you start to say no because you don't want to, you don't like it. So this is the same with sciatica, with anxiety, with money problems. You may have a generalization idea of why it's not happening, but a consultation allows us to select a practice that heals it from the root, from the subconscious so that it changes over those 40 days and you don't repeat those patterns.
Yeah. So we're gonna remind them about the mini consultations tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you just comment interested, so you'll be for the 5 first people, then we'll do that. But if you want personalized consultations, you can just DM directly either Harsimran or myself for the personalized practice. I have 6 places left for this month. I'm not sure about you, Harsimran.
I haven't started advertising it yet, so I'm still open. Yes, but if you would like to experience this consultation, what we're talking about, how we can feel precisely where your blocks are, you can write down your name, date of birth, which city you live in right now, and what topic you want to work with. So wherever you have the most tension or pain.
Mm-hmm.
You can leave it in the comments and we'll go through it once you post it. But yes, I wanted to learn this from Dasha because I went to her myself with so many things that just weren't working in my life. And I got to work them through with her, and I knew that I wanted to do the same for my clients. So I was really, really fortunate to do this consultation training, and immediately I began to get clients for it because there's nothing like it. Imagine someone comes to you and they're talking to you, immediately you know where their blocks are, and they're like, what? How do you do this? And I had this amazing case where you'll have this as well in your future classes and when you do consultations, where I had a group of people, we were doing the topic of prosperity. And a few of them started to write in the comments, you know, I don't think this is going to work for me. It's never worked for me. And I said, and they were like, so what can I do? Can you please tell me what's the best practice for prosperity? And I said, there's nothing generalized for it. But if you like, I'll give you a mini consultation and show you where your blocks is. So I did it for the first person and it was to the point. Like they had this fear that was being developed by this and this, and they were completely shocked. They're like, how did you do that? And then the entire class, I was like, okay, please do my mini consultation. And then what's really interesting is that all of them had fears. The generalized topic was fear and anxiety, but each of their fears were so different, and how it was affecting them was so different. I had a client there who had been, I didn't know this. I did her consultation. I said, well, you have like no energy in your body. You're completely blocked everywhere. You need to work with this topic. And later she wrote, you know, I've been sick for 3 years with scurvy, and I just healed it recently a year ago, but I still have no energy, and I can't get myself motivated to do anything because I literally am like a zombie. But how did you know that? How did you know I had no energy, that I was so heavy, like as if like my skin weighed like 50 pounds in each area? And this was like accurate. So we went through the entire class. I gave everyone a mini consultation. And from there, they all did a full consultation, and they were all writing back in 2-3 days, like, oh, this has happened. I did this. This has changed. I'm doing more of that. And they started to get results. And this is the beauty of the consultation. It's not like waiting for lightning to strike or for some angels to come and be like, okay, now you're going to be prosperous. No, none of that. You will get to cultivate it on a daily basis yourself. You get to create miracles in your life where you never thought it was possible.
Yeah, that is incredible. And it is definitely possible in this day and age. And it's just to also say that the practices that had been working in the Piscean age, which Yogi Bhajan was teaching a lot, they don't necessarily work in this age, and some of them could be even harmful. if you just like picking out of the book or out of the internet, like just any old practice, without the guide, without the experienced guide, without the experienced consultant who has done it, who has experienced it in their own body, how can you be sure?
Absolutely. And my dad had this very similar situation where he was doing Sudarshan Kriya. And it's like, oh, this is a powerful Kriya. I'm pumping my navel. And he got this terrible pain in his chest and diaphragm, and he couldn't breathe for around 2 weeks. It hurt so bad for him to do anything, and he was in terrible pain. And he did not connect it at that time to the meditation. It's like, oh no, like it's making me stronger. But how we never understand what's causing our so-called weaknesses, right? I always thought that because I couldn't speak or because I was anxious all the time, I'm weak. So I did this practice called overcoming weaknesses, and I felt terrible for weeks because my diaphragm, again, completely clogged. My back became like a rock, and everything felt so heavy because I was just picking something based on a name, but I had no idea how it would work, how it would affect me, especially as an individual who's had so many different experiences and even traumas. And all those different things impact the body differently for each of us. And I think one of the best examples is for me is observing how both my brother and I went through really similar traumatic situations, but we both respond to it so differently. It's like night and day, even though we had the same situations. And when we talk about the situation as well, it's like we went through two different experiences, and it's like how does that make sense? And yet the way we respond to every situation, to what we hear, it all differs. And this is why a consultation practice is so important and it's so healing, because it's so precise to you and it's working on those blocks that tighten, that tense the entire body. So it's not just never once when I wanted to work with prosperity, Dasha has never once given me a prosperity meditation. Would you
There's a
believe that?
few of them. There's a
You
few of
would
them,
think
yeah.
like you would be doing prosperity meditations. You're working on the topic of prosperity, but never. She's always given me for fears or relaxing the heart center. And yet, for me, those were the biggest blocks in terms of prosperity. Because I've always been anxious about doing something wrong or speaking or making a mistake. And so she's always had me work with those topics rather than a prosperity meditation, because they have no place in my reality, in what I need. You can become prosperous when you remove like one block in your life. And this is actually how it began for me, and I'm sure that's how it began for you. She worked on this one topic for you and you're like, that's it, I'm in for it, right? I'm in for the whole ride.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. She's got it. She got me on the exactly what I needed. Yeah. And I mean, this is just amazing because I feel that everybody deserves to have a healthy and happy life and to be able to have access to these teachings. And that's what our teacher gives us, such a beautiful access. You don't have to be special yogi. There's no certification at the beginning. There's no testing as such, like
Yeah.
everybody's welcome. And so we can learn, and as Harsimran and myself, we're learning how to go deeper with these consultations so we can change people's lives, because that's why I wanted to go into yoga, because I wanted to help others, and I love helping others. But wouldn't it be even better helping others when I have not only just helped myself, I went beyond that, so you can do that from experience and confidence that it actually works.
Absolutely. I agree with that for sure. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think back to it, and I've had so many different situations and so many different kinds of blocks, with prosperity, with speaking, with trauma. And each one I got to work out with Dasha. And it's as if you get to just develop more and more of yourself, and you get to just come to understand what you need from yourself, from your life. And this is really what made me, leave my job in the beginning, where I only found jobs where I was getting terrible pay and I had to work 10 hours a day. And I thought this was normal because this was the standard with everyone around me. I thought this is normal. You're never going to find anything better. And when I began setting up my Instagram channel and deciding that I wanted to teach yoga, I found clients who were able to pay me more than I was earning 3 weeks at this job. And it's really incredible because I got to find myself, help someone else, and at the same time leave behind something that I never wanted to do in the first place, but I always thought I had to. Like, this is the way life is. And this is what we get to heal in the consultation. And we don't have to wake up every day with anxiety, go to sleep feeling anxious about waking up the next day. We can't function when we have to always be anxious. And it shows up in every situation. It showed up for me with work, with my relationship, with the way I took care of myself. And I saw no benefit in it anymore. I got so tired of it. I was like, oh my God, like, will I always have to be this miserable? And I really didn't want to be. I was really fortunate to see Dasha working firsthand, and I was like, she's healing people who are incredibly sick, like they're dying patients. And I was like, if they can get a chance, why can't I? It's all in the mind, it's all in our subconscious where we believe so deeply that things can't change, that can't get better. And I saw Vladimir, who's Dasha's son, working with some of the heaviest patients. There was a girl who had been in an accident and her skull had come off, and she was in coma for 2 weeks. And the second the accident happened, they contacted Dasha, and Dasha and Vladimir started treating her. And the first thing that was really incredible is the doctor said there's no way she'll get out of it. And if she does, there will be so much brain damage that she won't be able to be herself again. And Vladimir treated her for 2 weeks, and she came out of coma, and she's never had any brain issues, any physical issues with that. And I was so shocked, but at the same time, I recognized this is what Dasha does and gives. And if such a situation can be healed, it's not a miracle. This is something they are doing. They are producing. It's not just like lightning struck and she was healed. This is something they did. And this is the same with the consultations, where so much can change, so much can be healed if you decide, I want it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's available to anybody. Yeah, no matter your condition, no matter your life status, country, language, like anything.
Absolutely. I had a client who came to me and her husband didn't speak any English. And she said, how are we going to do the consultation? Because normally I would do it on a call. And I said, don't worry, just put him on the call, tell him to speak in his language, and I will listen. And so we did that, and I immediately pinpointed where his blocks were, even though I didn't understand what he was saying.
Isn't that
And she
incredible?
was on the call with him just to kind of help translate what I was saying as well. And she was shocked. She said, oh my God, how did you know that? You don't need, with the
I love it.
consultations, you don't need to have the same language. You can speak, and as a consultant, from what we've trained with Rasha, we can feel precisely what's happening just through your words. We don't need to understand it because what we're doing goes beyond the mind. There's no knowledge. We're the entire training. We don't take a single note. We don't write anything. We have no manuals. It's through a meditative space and through Dasha that we get to even understand what's happening. Because it's not just the meditations, it's very specifically through the teacher who can open up our consciousness in this way to be able to perceive what's happening. And this is why I've continued to go back for every consultation because it develops more and more and more. And Vladimir, who was trained by her directly, he can already see like precisely like the entire pattern of why it's happening. And I know I still can't do it at his level at all. Like I'm like, oh my God, like how are you doing this? But this is what we get to learn with Dasha, and we go deeper. So whether you're starting from scratch or you're starting like 10 years down the road, your consciousness gets to develop more and more so that it becomes more clear. And this is why, as well, Yogi Bhajan and Gurudev never stopped practicing every single day. They were the ones doing like 5, 8, 10, 20 hours of meditation to have that state and that awareness to always keep it there, to never close. And the same with Dasha. Anytime I visit her, it's like 6 to 8 hours. So we're like, okay, she's meditating. Like 6 hours goes by, like, okay, she's meditating. And then she comes and I'm just like, Harsimran, you need to do this. And I'm like, huh? So yeah, you need to do this. This is why, and this is why you have this. And the second I do whatever she tells me to do, like immediately the situation where I can't make even 100 euros that week, I'm earning like 3,000 euros that week, and I'm like, how? How? Like, how is this happening? And this is literally what we get to do in consultations. And I'm so excited for you to learn it because you'll get to feel like the shock as well.
I am just so super excited. And the good news is that for those people who come for the personal consultation, say to me or Harsimran, you don't have to pay, say like big bucks for it. You can pay what we charge and you still be in the field of our teacher Dasha and the teacher that came before her and before her. So, all this teachings and this healing is specific. It goes from the teacher to the student. It's not just like any old Joe Blog I'm going to give you, right? So it's very specific. And so, and that's how it works really. And yeah, like Harsimran saying, it works beyond the knowledge, beyond the seeing with normal eyes, and it's just beyond the understanding because we're so used to just devalue things, especially this day and age. We just don't understand it, and good thing is you don't have to understand it because it works whether you understand it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have any interest in a mini consultation? Please, right now. If not, we'll get to closing.
Or if you have any questions, questions and answers, we can answer your questions if there are some specific ones.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see some of the people here. So, yeah, very nice. Like Ellie, haven't seen you in so long. I wonder how you're doing. Who else we have? Galina is my very dear friend. We have Tatiana Kuznetsova, so she's also doing the training with us, so she's going to be learning. Sami, Anandanam Jod, and Atarva, of was, yeah, I've met him in India, so he's from India. So we have all over, people all over. Oh, thank you, Galia. She says it was
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Yes, so please, if you're interested, sign up for a consultation already so you can be in the space and we can guide you with within Dasha's space. Those are always the most powerful practices and classes I've ever had. Anytime I've gone for Dasha's class or I'm in her training and I teach, my clients have the most incredible results. And they're completely shocked. And I'm like, this because I've just gone to Dasha's class. They're like, oh my God, please. And so I always try even to do classes like right around the same time, days within Dasha, so that I can always be in this meditative space and see precisely the blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what happened last night for me, I was having a one-to-one with one of my students, and I was kind of going from that space. I'm like, okay, let's feel and let's sense what she needs. And she's had such a profound experience. I mean, she put feedback on my Instagram story, which I didn't even ask her to do, but she was just like so overjoyed. She was like, oh, what just happened? And we didn't do anything like special. We did a little bit of neck roll and like very simple stuff. But it was what she needed. It was what she needed, and it just worked amazingly. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's great. And I mean, I can see, Ellie, you said that you're busy, 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 and I totally get you. I know you've got 3 children, and I wonder how old they are now because it was a long time ago when I saw you last. But this can help. The consultation can help with just calming your surroundings, because your surroundings are the mirror of what is happening inside of you. So if you can tap in and just relax that tension within you, and we will help you do that, then your surroundings just harmonizes with that. We don't have
Absolutely.
to we don't have to be busy to be self-realized or self-actualized. It can be so much easier and so much more joyful, and we can actually enjoy our children so much more.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of the best things for parents, consultations, because our kids are constantly learning from us, and they pick up on everything we feel. I never imagined for many years. I've always thought all of my anxieties, all of my fears were just my own. And when I began to learn from Dasha, I realized and I began to see my parents have the same very fears and blocks. And I never saw it before, I never recognized it. And they're not the kind of people who are like, oh, I like to meditate. They're like, I'm too busy, I have too much work, because they tend to always overwork themselves or find themselves jobs where they're like completely washed out. They sleep like 6 to 8 hours a day and they're like, okay, that's it. And this is the kind of jobs they would always find. And I did my first, I think this was around my first consultation while I was still living with them. And immediately they became happier and calmer. And they would come home and they would be smiling and they would talk with so much joy. And the same very fears that I had, I started to relax in myself and they began to relax as well.
Mm.
And it was so strange because I've always thought they're never going to change. They're always going to be stressed. And Dasha's like, oh, you have to cut that bullshit out because it's not true. You are the one producing it. And you get to decide, especially as a woman, we get to set the tone for our family, for the relationships we build. And the second I began to heal myself, they became happier as well, because now we weren't clashing with the same anxieties and same fears 24/7. And it was just more, I became more understanding of myself and I gave them their space. and they were able to reciprocate that, even though it was never natural. And in fact, we would always fight. It was like, I hated living with them. I hated them to the point where I was like, I'm never going to talk to them again. And when I began to practice with Dasha, I became more, what's the word? Open about how much I hated them. And yet at the same time, it's really strange. I started to become more open about how much I hated them. And at the same time, I was able to feel at peace with them. And I stopped putting my traumas and my anxieties and my problems with them in our relationship, and we just created space. So as a mother, even when you're really busy in a consultation practice, you'll be surprised, but you don't need to do 3-4 hours of meditation. In fact, most of my clients, from the meditations I've given them, they practice from 30 minutes to an hour max a day, and it relieves so much of their anxieties and their worries, and the relationships they build around them become much more happier and pleasant as well.
Yeah, and it's not even like in one block. You do a little bit in the morning and a little bit at night.
Yeah.
So it's not 1 hour in one block, because, you know, for a busy mom, 1 hour is a big space of time, but it's maybe 15-20 minutes in the morning, 15, depending on the issue and depending on the block you have in your body, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it helps so much, because the more you understand yourself and the more you recognize that you are stressed out. I think this is something we never want to admit, but no matter who we are, we do get stressed. I get stressed. On a daily basis, I recognize the moment I get stressed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm stressed out. And never once. In fact, my partner is a consultant as well, and he would be like, you know, why are you anxious? And I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, he's like, what are you anxious about? I'm like, I'm not anxious. And he would know before I would know that I was anxious. And when I began to also learn it, I became more aware of like, that has stressed me out. And yet, for the first time with these practices, I get to truly relieve them and understand what is stressing me out. And I get to create choices, make conscious choices, saying, you know what, I don't think I should be doing that anymore. That really does stress me out. Or I need to give myself space so that I don't completely have a meltdown. So with the meditation, not only do it's whatever we do in the mat, it's as if it's just a practice, but it develops throughout your day. It has that domino effect where throughout your day you become happier, more conscious, and more stable. And you recognize what triggers you. And at the same time, you know, when you get to bed, you get to relieve it. And the next day you get to feel lighter.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I also wanted to add on that topic of the family life and being a mum, you know, and having children. And yeah, you're gonna fly off the handle. That's no doubt about that. But actually, what started to happen for me, even I have been practicing for such a long time, what started to happen to me in Dasha's guidance is that I became so chilled. I can recognize that when it's my shit, I have to deal, and I'm not passing it onto my child. I'm not using my child as a therapy or like a you know, because that's what we do. Like our loved ones or our children, we run our anger, frustration, our anxieties on them, when we just have to like, actually, hang on a minute. No, this is me, and I can do something about it. I can step back and let them live normal life. Like my partner came home from being away for 4 days on a business trip last night, and I just saw how anxious he was. He was just like, wow, 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 wow. And I was like, oh my God, he's creating so much havoc just on this spot. And I was like, why don't I run you a bath? So I ran him a bath, and like, he does not have baths, right? Okay, never. He's not a bath person. So I ran him a bath, and I've put some salts in there, and I've put some things in there. And he's like like, oh, is that for me? Are you not going in? I'm like, no, no, it's for you. You go in and yeah, I can be near you if you want me to. So he went in and he was like, ah. And I just put my hand on him and I've passed my peace and my calmness to him. And he just like started to really relax and exhale. And isn't that amazing that we can share this when we have this awareness? We can share that with our loved ones so they calm down. You know, you don't have to like put it in all these frames. Oh, look, come on, I'm going to heal you now. Like sit down or lie down in this position. You
Yeah,
can just be so kind and bring that, just awareness and calm and peace. And he was
absolutely.
just so grateful. And yeah, I'm not going to tell you what happened after because that's private.
But I mean, it's exactly as you said. It's what we get to do on the mat is just, 5% of the effect. Because throughout the day, you get to be more conscious, more loving. And this is something, I've never been able to do. When my partner would come home stressed, immediately I would get anxious. I'd be like, oh my God, what did I do? And if he doesn't feel happy immediately, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to hate me. He's going to leave me. Because this was the same trauma I had with my parents. So for me, I would always put more tension on him, more stress on him, because I could never understand my own anxiety, nor did I ever find any ways to relieve it thoroughly. And because of that, it always strained our relationship.
Yeah,
And it's just, you don't feel safe, you don't feel loved, you don't feel understood. And all you do is you go to sleep, you feel worse, and you're like, oh my God, like I have to restart this the next day. Nothing is changing. We're just going to be the same anxious, stressed out people who can't understand what we need from each other, whether it's space or to say, I'm going to draw you a bath and, I'm going to cook you something, or you know what, let's go out on a date.
yeah,
These little things, this is what we get to develop. And for me, this has actually been such a pleasant experiment, how I bring meditation into my life, because I get to say, you know what, this is what I need from you. I want to go on dates weekly. So we do that because I recognize what I need, and we do things to make that a reality. So whether if it's a money issue, this is why we're not going, okay, what we can do now to have the money to make this a possibility. But we
yeah,
normally don't have those talks because we're so anxious and stressed out, and we always assume what is going to happen. Well, they're also stressed out. We definitely don't have the money, so it's never going to change. Okay, we're always going to be unhappy. And yet, with this one consultation practice, I remember I never thought I needed to work with relationship. And Dasha's like, you need to work with this topic now. This is your topic now. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, do this topic now. And we work on this. And I did this topic, and that's when it started to really change for me. And the more I could bring, the more I relieved my anxiety, understood them, the more I could understand my partners. And we started to develop a relationship that worked for us both, that made us both happy. And I don't think we've had a fight for almost 2 years now. Anytime we're stressed, we recognize that, you know what, I don't like what you just said. And immediately we resolve it. Because we know it's like, no, you're just being a bitch
yeah,
right now. Right? But we can communicate it, which is something I've never seen my family do. I've never seen anyone around me do. And yet, this is something we developed ourselves just through our own personal practice, understanding what's needed of ourselves and of each other and what we want in this relationship as well. So it's such a beautiful thing in a consultation practice is that everyone around you gets to benefit, even when they don't practice it. My parents don't practice it, and yet they come to me for business advice. They're like, okay, so we're doing this. Can you give me a little consultation? What should I do? And I'm like, okay. And it's incredible because every time I would do this practice, and then I'm like, you guys shouldn't do that because you're doing it out of fear. And they won't do that. And later they'll be so happy. They're like, oh my God, we would have lost like $50,000 on that. They didn't do it. And my brother, when I first did this consultation practice, he's younger than me. And at that time in Singapore, all of the boys have to go to the army mandatory for 2 years. And he was about to leave it. And he said, I'm thinking to get a local job at Starbucks around $8 an hour, which is like around 550 euros. It's like, yeah, I think I'm getting that. I said, why? It's like, well, it's standard. That's what everyone does here. And I said, but why? And he's like, well, it's standard. And I was like, but you can do better. Why don't you set a projection for how much you want to earn? And what's really incredible is that since we've both seen our parents building their own business, he was like, I would love to be earning 20,000 euros a month. And somehow or another, that month, he'd done a treatment with Dasha, and he did this meditation we get from her after the treatment. And that month, he had, I think, $700 left over. And he found some people like at work, and they're like, yeah, we're about to do some investing here and here. And he invested $700 and earned 100,000
Wow.
in 2 weeks.
Wow. So he's just
And
changed it just changed his way of being. It's just changed
absolutely.
him completely, just working on whatever block he had.
Yeah. And for him, his standard and his subconscious belief is that this is normal, earning $8, right? And this is what everyone told him. This is what my parents told him. I was like, no, why are you doing that? I was like, look at all these people. And I was like, you need to think of yourself in your best version. And with the practice of the consultation practice, he got into that zone. He was like, okay, I'm going to earn this much. And my parents ended up giving him a big, I think around $10,000, and he earned $500,000 in 6 months.
Wow.
They were like, okay, here you go. And they started to they were like, okay, what practice is Dasha giving now? You're like, okay, give us what practice Dasha's giving. And really, it's not like they don't do it for long. They do her meditations, which are like around 11 minutes. And that's it.
And
Once a day. But the choices they make become more aligned with their higher value and their higher standards, rather than this traumatized or past beliefs of, it's hard, money is hard to get, you can't make any big money, it's going to take 50 years to build your business. I mean, these are the beliefs they've always grown with. And yet with the practice, it changes your consciousness to the point where you're like, this is my goal, this is my wish, this is what I'm going to focus on. And literally, they were just telling me last week, yes, we took your advice and we started to think about what we wanted, and we've set this goal, and now we only take jobs for this goal. We never take anything less. And in fact, we find it 3 times easier. 10 times easier. We only find those jobs now. It's like we don't need to consider anything else. And this is what it gets to do, is it doesn't matter what topic it is or what you want to work with, but when you get to work on your own blocks and recognize, I'm tired today, I'm stressed today, and you do this practice from the consultation practice, which is very short. Considering what it gives you in life, it's so short, and it takes only your stress, your anxiety, your fatigue, your uncertainty away, and it gives you everything else in life. Everything, like the confidence, the ability to even see beyond the mind's eye. This is something, even without the consultation practices, some of the meditations allow you to develop such intuition and ability to just know with certainty, this is what I need to do. And you start to create, you make choices that always result in the favor that you want. And this was actually one of the first few things that happened to me as well, that also got me into it, where I had such I had goals and plans around prosperity and wanting to do my own business, and I would do them, and then it would just, I would know what to do. And no matter, even when I thought I was making the wrong choices, they would always result in a way that brought me prosperity.
Mm.
So this is kind of the power with it, where even when you fail, even when you're tired, you still get to create the results that you want. Because this is what it does. It changes your consciousness to that point where you can still be tired, you can be sick in bed, and you'll still get clients. You know, people will want to come and take care of you. People who've never done that in your life, they'll be like, you know, what can we do for you?
Yeah,
And that's just
that's
the beauty
amazing.
of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I was just wondering if anybody had any questions or anybody wants to have a mini consultation um, tonight whilst we're doing live, because there's some new people joined. So let us know. Or if you want to sign up for the private consultation, you can private message to Harsimran or myself, and we'll get back to you. There was another person, Navleen, I think. I don't know if you're still here, Navleen, because she had some treatment from me, Satnam Rasayan. So I wonder if Navleen, you can share anything if you're here. Yeah, I was just remembering when you were talking about prosperity and the beliefs and the patterns that we have. I've certainly had that pattern in my head, you know. I was like, no, I can't earn over a certain amount. Like even being in England, you know, as a young girl from Ukraine, I was like, okay, well, £300 a month for the full time work. It was like, wow, this is such a big money for me, which was absolute exploitation. But recently, just before I've started with Dasha and her guidance, I was doing a project and I was due quite a big check. And lo and behold, when I received the money, I was then contacted by scammers and they've scammed me for that amount of money because I didn't believe that I deserved it, even though I've worked for it, I've received it, so I've gone that far. But then I didn't believe I deserved it, and so I've created a situation where the money was basically taken away. But then I went like, oh, hold on a minute, like because I was already starting with Dasha, and I've started to kind of heal that part of me. I was okay, I've sat down and I thought of that situation and I've just like brought that situation into my meditative space, just like Dasha teaches, and it got resolved. And the bank sent me the money back because it just worked. I was like over the moon. I was like,
Wow.
and that was not a small amount. It was £2,000, you know, and I was like, oh my God, how can I do this to myself? But that's just
That is true. I mean, especially with money, we create, like, when we feel we don't deserve it or when we're afraid of it, we will find ways to get rid of it. Like, and
exactly
my
that.
family, I've seen this with every person in my family where literally they start to get a lot of money and they will reject it. And I've seen it with my parents and the workers they would hire. Anytime they began to pay them higher, they would immediately, like $1,000 more than anyone else was paying, they would leave. Like they would be like, oh, they would have problems all the way. And then they would leave. And a month later, they would call back and say, can we come back? Yes, we're earning like 3 times less than we were earning with you. And when my parents were telling me this and I was contemplating and I was like, wow, they really can't, subconsciously, they don't believe that this amount they deserve, that they can receive. And I was like, you know, if you want to keep workers, you don't need to pay them extra. Really, because most of us don't believe we deserve it.
Yeah.
We don't, we really don't. And we will find ways to get rid of it. So I was like, yeah, you know, if you want, you give them bonuses, but don't pay them like a higher salary, because never once they've hired hundreds of people, but never once the second they start to pay them higher have they stayed around. Like a
Mm.
significant amount, not just like, oh, $100 or a few $100s, but I mean over 1,000 more, they will never stick around. Never. Because subconsciously we don't believe we deserve this. And you'll notice for in the consultation, the main resistances are it doesn't work for me. I don't think it's going to do anything for me. It's always something like that. Or I don't have time. But these are our own subconscious beliefs that we're replaying. Why don't we have time? Are you saying we don't have 20 minutes a day to say, I need to wake up earlier and to just take care of my state, relieve my anxiety,
Yeah.
knowing that it's going to improve this and this and this? I mean, relieving our anxiety, it seems like when you think about it, it's like, oh, I won't be anxious anymore. But imagine how that plays out in your daily life. Like, you're not going to stand for any bullshit that happens. Some of the biggest problems people come to me with is like, yeah, like my employers or my employees, like people around me at work are horrible and I never know what to say. And they're like, I become so anxious. So if you remove this anxiety, you're not going to stand for that bullshit. You're going to be
Exactly.
like, nope. And people won't want to mess with you
Yeah.
simply because they know and they see now, like, oh, you're different.
Yeah. What a liberation. What a liberation. Can I just add, what you were touching upon is very important. And yes, people, just like myself and Harsimran, we don't see our biggest blocks ourselves. This
Mm,
is why we need a consultant, teacher, who can be this pure mirror and show us and say to us, this is your block, you need to work on this. And I was talking to one of my prospective client, and she was like, I've got problem here and here and here and here. And she wasn't even able to pinpoint and give just one sentence of what she wanted to work on. So she was completely in a mind fog. And then she was, of course, yeah, I don't need anything, like, I'll be fine, kind of thing. So she couldn't even see it for herself. And and so what I wanted to say is, please don't listen to your mind, listen to your heart, because we cannot really rely on the mind. If our mind says, I love this person today, and if our mind says, I hate the same person tomorrow, how can we rely on this thing? It's not reliable. So what we need to rely is the people that we trust, and we need to feel, if this calls to you and if you feel the connection, then this is definitely going to work for you. And you need to reach out for yourself and make that first step, because you could be so deeply seated in that brain fog or anxiety or making that first connection. You know, just reach out on a DM or whatever to Harsimran or myself, and we help you, you know. That's what we're here for. And
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really accurate point because um, for the last 5 years, I've never picked my own meditation practices. Never. And I think one of the biggest resistances to a consultation practice is knowing that it's going to work directly. And we're afraid for change. We're afraid that if we change, the people we love will leave, and things won't be as they always have been, even though we know it will become better. So I understand this fear very deeply, and yet there is, you know, it's all an imagination of the mind. To not be anxious does not mean you're cutting people out of your life, and you'll become a stuck-up bitch. Be like, nope, right? You just become more conscious. You become more compassionate, and you become more authentic to yourself, recognizing your boundaries, what you need. And when you can do that for yourself, you can do that for the people around you, especially the people you love. And one of the most beautiful things, I always see this with every single one of my clients, is that their partners and their children and their parents always benefit from it. Always, 100% of the time. Even though they're the ones setting up more boundaries, which was never being able to be placed in the first place for years. And yet, when you do it through this space of this consultation, it cultivates such compassion and profound harmony that they feel that too. And those fears that were there in the first place, that were preventing the boundaries or the respect to be placed, they dissolve as well. Because ultimately, everyone around us is anxious.
Yeah.
And until we don't understand ourselves and help ourselves, we can't help anyone else. And this is, you can see that immediately with your partner.
Yeah.
I
And
see every
anxiety
single thing.
is huge, and it's in everyone. It's just so normalized that we don't even notice. We swim in a sea of anxiety every single day. And we
No.
just like, we don't notice it because it's a baseline for us,
Yeah, it is a
unfortunately.
baseline, exactly. So there's a lot to be gained. And, you know, with this consultation, what really drew me as well, is the fact that before Dasha, before Gurudev, only masters could do this consultation. And they did not teach it to anyone, nobody. And it was only from one master to his student who would become the master. And that's it. This is how the lineage went. And when Yogi Bhajan taught it to Gurudev, he was like, okay, you can now find a few teachers. And now Dasha, from what I've seen, is the only Sadhana Science teacher teaching this. And for me, I trust her completely because I've seen just working on myself, so much has changed. And I was just telling people a few days ago, like, if you go back to my page and you see like the first year or two of my posts, I can't even speak there. Like, I'm so incoherent, like nothing makes sense. I'm like reading it and I'm so embarrassed to be reading it. I'm like, really? Why was I writing that? But this was, you know, my block of the throat chakra where I just couldn't communicate. I was afraid to put myself out there. And then over time, it started to change and you could see the progress. And what was really incredible was I noticed, as well as with the consultation practice, I I don't know if I ever said the right thing, but I always just spoke from the heart, which was something I could never do in the past.
Mm.
But when I began to do that, I found clients who connected to that. And even though I didn't write polished things and I didn't know how to speak, I couldn't do live streams, at the same time, I found clients who connected to that. And this is the same when you begin to do your own consultation practice. You begin to find people and help and opportunities in every sphere of your life that can support you, that are there for you. And the entire time you're wondering as it starts to happen, it's like, how has this never happened before? Because it feels like a miracle and it feels unbelievable. And yet that becomes the result because your consciousness becomes so purified from all the fears and anxieties and the stress and all the tolls of the health issues and the toxins. I mean, everything. It starts to be purified of that. And everyone becomes attracted to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just, yeah, my friend saying goodbye. Thank you so much for joining, Galina. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. She's coming over, so we'll chat more about that. And I'm
Perfect.
sure, yeah, I'm sure we'll go even deeper. But if anybody has any questions, please pop them in the comments. And thank you for being with us. I'm just loving this. I mean, look, we've just spoke and spoke, and it's already 1.5 hours have gone by. It's like that. Oh, incredible. Yeah, yeah, good stuff. So What do you want? Wrap up or?
Yes, I think let's do that. But thank you guys all, everyone who's been joining us and watching us live. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, and I really highly recommend joining for a consultation. You're never going to find anything like it, and you'll immediately begin to see results. It's not something you have to wait for 5, 10 years, or even months. You know, this is something you get to see happening in the first few days. So there's so much to be gained, and it just completely gives to you everything you need.
Yeah, I would say exactly the same. Make a step towards yourself rather than towards your mind, towards your ego, or towards your pretense. Just make a step towards more prosperous, more healed, and more happy person. And so you can spread that happiness and wealthiness and wealth and your health around you as well. Well, someone has a question. How do you feel before the start? How do we feel before the start? Before the start of what? Sorry, Gianna? If
I
you
don't
could
see the
clarify.
questions.
You don't see the questions.
No.
Okay, so it's just one question from Gianna. How do you feel before the start? So I'm just interested to clarify before the start of what? Before the start of training. Okay, so how do we feel before the start of training? Well, I can say that I am very excited, but I'm also like anxious because it feels that I am entering a new territory where I haven't been before. But because I trust the guide, my teacher, I know that it's going to be okay. But it's literally, it's a leap of faith, a step of faith. So I guess that could mean very similar to those people who never done a consultation before or tried this type of healing. They would probably feel exactly the same. They're like, oh, I really want to, but I'm not quite sure. So, yeah, you can just reach out to us and we can have a more conversation about it. And then Gianna says, what would you say to those who have never done consultations before? Harsimran, do you want to answer that one?
I think for every one of my clients, they've never done this before. So, I mean, I guess what I like to say is, I guess have a goal of what you want to work with. A lot of people come to me for prosperity, which was the strangest thing for me. I was like, really? And this is like the crowd I started to get. Everyone wanted to work with prosperity. And I found it funny because this was like my sore point. So, but everyone came to me for that topic and they knew like, I want to get this done. I want to move in this direction. I don't want to be anxious anymore about this. So having a goal of what you want, that's it. That's all you need. You don't need anything else. Literally, we will feel where your blocks are and then give you a practice, and every day you get to do it. You get to check in with us and say, I feel this or this is happening, and there's so much prosperity and changes that will start to come. And it's cool because this was immediately after my first training, immediately people got results, like in days. It did not take months or years. No, within days, they were changing, they were healing, things were moving for them that had been stuck for years. So just knowing like, I want to have this or I don't want to have this, that's also another version. Like, I don't want to be anxious. That was me. Like, I don't want to be anxious. So, take me, give me any practice, I'll do it. And I think this is, one of the biggest, for me, it always came down to like, once I suffer to a point where I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. I never want to experience this again. Like, that's it. But I think what will also help is whenever Joe does the live stream, ask for a mini consultation. right? You can kind of dip your toes in and see what's happening and like get a taste of it. And then you can decide whether or not you want to move forward with it. And I think at least half of my clients have been that way. I've just introduced them to it, shown them their blocks, and like, okay, no one can do that. Never have they met anyone who can do that. I want to work with you. And they get to see results and changes, because imagine if we can already see where your blocks are precisely, you'll be shocked at how deeply we can see you and feel you. We can also select a practice to go along with that depth and magnitude of healing. And this is what we train for. It's not a normal, common thing to be able to do it.
No.
And honestly, for me, going into the training tomorrow, I'm so excited because I know I can just, sleep throughout the day. I'll feel so relaxed, and like I don't have to be anxious about anything. And I know I will leave the class being like, wow, okay, I can make my goals happen. So there's a lot of excitement, because we don't learn anything. We just go into such a meditative space that we just become so clean, are purified from our bullshit. And then from there, our consciousness can change with Dasha's guidance in her space to be able to recognize someone's blocks.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, looking forward to that. Yeah. And Gianna, just reach out and just DM to either of us, and let's see what we can do for you. And yeah, I'm super, super excited. I've got 4 clients who are waiting for me to start. And there's one with the condition that is either the Lyme disease or because it has never been like described exactly. Even the doctors can't make their minds up, so Lyme disease or the chronic fatigue. I've got somebody with a tumor in the brain. I have somebody with, again, another fatigue. And what's the other person? Oh, I forgot. I forgot. I think, I can't think about it. Sorry. But, it could be anything. It could be health. It could be relationships. Could be, just
Money.
even money. Yeah. And all the conditions in between. So anything, whatever's bugging you and whatever's you just like really getting tired of seeing or being sick of seeing again and again and again, like going around the circles with the same problem, just reach out.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words, Harsimran?
No, but thank you guys for joining live and listening to us. I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'm ready to go and rest.
Yes, yeah. And thank you so much, for joining. And I'm so grateful, Harsimran. I've got a new friend. I'm so like, ooh,
Yeah,
be
thank
hanging
you
out
as well.
in the space together. Yeah, it's wonderful. And yeah, guys, thank you for joining. Have a lovely evening, and hopefully see you next time, because we'll pop out again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and also just for us doing this together and actually making the time. So I'm so happy about that. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
pleasure. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Cami. Bye. Bye.